In economics, demand is the quantity of a good that consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period of time. The relationship between price and quantity demand is also called the demand curve. The demand equation is the mathematical expression of the relationship between the quantity of a good demanded and those factors that affect the willingness and ability of a consumer to buy the good. For action where QD is the quantity of good demanded, P is the price of the good, PRG is the price of a related good, and Y is income. The function on the right side of the equation is called the demand function. The semicolon in the list of arguments in the demand function means that the variables to the right are being held constant as one plot the demand curve in. A simple example of a demand equation is QD equals 325 minus P minus 30 PRG plus 1.4Y. Here, 325 is the repository of all relevant non-specified factors that affect demand for the product. P is the price of the good. The coefficient is negative in accordance with the law of demand. The related good may be either a complement or a substitute. If it is a complement, the coefficient of its price would be negative x in this example. If it is a substitute, the coefficient of its price would be positive. Income or Y has a positive coefficient, indicating that the good is a normal good. If the coefficient were negative, the good would be an inferior good, meaning that the demand for the good would fall as the consumer's income has increased. Specifying values for the non-price determinant PRG equals 4.00 and Y equals 15 results in demand equation Q equals 325 minus P minus 30 multiplied by 4 plus 1.4 multiplied by 50, or Q equals 275 minus P. The new demand equation would be Q equals 282 minus P. Graphically, this change in a non-price determinant of demand would be reflected in an outward shift of the demand function. When we talk about demand, what comes to our mind? It will be markets. A market is the platform that brings together buyers of different sorts and sellers of different sorts. They are the demander and the suppliers in any situation that involves a potential exchange of goods and cash. The corner gas station, an e-commerce site, the local music store, a farmer roadside stand, these are all markets familiar to us. Let's consider this hypothetical demand schedule for a single consumer purchasing bushels of corn. This table shows how the various price of corn and the quantity of corn a particular consumer would be willing and able to purchase at each of the price are related at $5 per bushel. The consumer is willing and able to buy 10 bushels per week, but at $4 the consumer is willing and able to buy as many as 20 bushels per week. And so forth. Thus, demand is simply a statement of a buyer's intention with respect to the purchase of a product. Let's represent the relationship between the price of corn and individual demand for this corn. On a simple graph, let's measure quantity demanded on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. Let's plot and connect the 5 price quantity data points listed in the table with a smooth curve. Label D, this curve is what we call a demand curve. Its downward slope reflects an inverse relationship that economists call the law of demand. So, What we understand is that we'll buy more of a product as its price declines and less of it as its price rises. Having come to this conclusion, we must now ask ourselves another question. Why is there an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded? Actually, the law of demand is consistent with common sense. People do tend to buy more of something when it's priced rather than when it's price high. That's why there is always a rush at clearance sales. It's ample evidence of the law of demand. Buying depends on one more thing, and that utility. It's been noted that in any specific time period, a buyer derives less satisfaction from each success unit of the product that he consumes. This satisfaction can be termed marginal utility because successive units yield less and less marginal utility. He will buy additional units if only the price of those units is progressively reduced. We see therefore that consumption is subject to diminishing marginal utility. For example, a decline in the price of chicken will increase the purchasing power of consumer incomes, enabling people to buy more chicken. This is the income effect that price decline has on demand. At a lower price, chicken is relatively more attractive and consumers tend to substitute it for pork, lamb, beef, and fish. This is the substitution effect that price decline has on demand. Income and substitution effect combine to make consumer able and willing to buy more of a product at a low price than at a high price. It does become clear how price and quantity demanded are inversely related. In the demand curve, we are trying to find out what's the relationship between price and the quantity that's demanded. Let's make it really simple by keeping everything else constant. That means ceteris paribus, given everything else constant. Let's freeze them. Only price and quantity left with these two variables. We can draw two axes. The convention is to put the price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis. Remember, as consumer, we want to stretch our dollar. At $2, apples are expensive. We'll only get one apple. But at $1, apples are cheaper. Now we will get 3 apples. Then we connect the dots and tada! The demand curve. Now it's downward sloping. When price increase, quantity demanded decrease. When price decrease, quantity demanded increase. The arrows are always in opposite direction. This is the law of demand. There are inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Ceteris paribus, given everything else constant. Why? First, it's because of substitution effect. When apple get more expensive, we substitute apple with something else, like orange, so we buy fewer apples. There's also the income effect. Given the same income, when apples get more expensive, our purchasing power erodes. We feel our wallet shrinking. We, as a human being, always want to make our lives easier, to have more time and live our lives more convenient. There is always a demand for goods and service that are going to help us to satisfy our need. Therefore, we must find someone who is going to provide us with those we need supply for our demand. Here's some example. A years ago, the price for iPhone 11 is 12,999 Indonesia rupiah, and now the price was decreased to 7,999 Indonesia rupiah. To answer the question, we will use the demand curve shift left. It's important to differentiate between movement along the demand curve and a shift of the demand curve. The income effect, substitution effect, and law of diminishing utility all explain why points move down along the curve. However, the entire demand curve can also shift left or right without moving up or down on the y-axis. This means the demand changes independently of the price. A leftward shift in the demand curve indicates a decrease in demand because consumers are purchasing fewer products for the same price. Maybe 0 people buy the candy bar, so the shop lowers the price to $4. The normal demand curve would indicate that this price reduction should be sufficient to sell a candy bar. However, when the demand stays the same and no one buys the candy bar for a lower price, the demand curve has shifted to the left. The demand curve also shifts to the left or right when another variable is introduced. For example, if a celebrity gives an interview and mentions his favorite candy bar, demand for that candy bar might increase due to consumer curiosity or desire to be trendy. The price didn't have to change for demand to increase, so the curve shifts to the right. However, if a news report comes out that associates the candy bar with something bad, like cancer, demand would decrease regardless of whether the price also decreases. This would cause the demand curve to shift to the left. Other factors that shift the demand curve to the left include market saturation, long product lifespan, or an out-of-style product. From the data before, we must draw two curves to make the shift in the demand. In the first curve, we put the price is 12,999 Indonesia rupiah, with the consumption from 116.9 people until 242 people. It was increased from 2016 until 2020. In the second curve, we put the lowest price from 12,999 Indonesia rupiah. The price was decreased to 7,999 Indonesia rupiah, and the consumption was increased from 240 people to 215 people. Another information about demand is demand have a slope. The slope of a demand curve shows the ratio between the two absolute changes in price and demand. By applying demand slope, it is to be noted that in the case of a straight line demand curve, the slope is the same on all its points, but it is different on different points when the demand curve is not a straight line. In all cases, however, the slope is negative. It becomes positive in the exceptional case, when the demand curve upwards from left to right. In this connection, it has to be noted that the slope of the demand curve and the elasticity of demand curve are not identical except in some one special case. While slope of a demand curve denotes absolute change, elasticity of a demand curve is the ratio of relative change in demand to relative change in price. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. See you guys!